Welcome once again, everyone, to another episode of the Aces Loaded podcast. My name is Zack. I am the play-by-play broadcaster for the Reno Aces. Allegedly, I still haven't called my first Aces game as their broadcaster, but hey, we're just rolling with it. I'm joined this week by Jake Trybulski. There's a lot of, I guess there's some vowels in there. There's a lot of consonants in a row towards the end with, the I breaks it up. But Jake Trybulski, the Aces communication manager, is my co-host this week. Welcome, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And I want to say you said it perfect. Growing up as a kid, I would say try to teach a bull to ski. So that was you said it perfect. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the cheating mechanisms when it comes to trying to pronounce name. I got to do it for a living, so I appreciate that.
What was yours? Of people growing up get your name right? I mean, it took me a couple times. I mean, after I heard it, it was pretty easy.
Everybody wanted to say Bay Rowdy.
Okay.
Which I can totally understand. I get it. Like, you spell it out, and I'm surprised, actually, to be honest, more people don't screw it up. But Bay Rowdy is how you say it, even though it felt like Bay Rowdy. But I am from Worcester, Massachusetts, and try and spell that one.
I'm not even gonna. I know there's an R in there somewhere. That's all I'm gonna leave it up to.
2 R's. Worcester. Worcester.
Okay, Worcester. No, I mean, and then they have that the team that's moving there, correct?
The Woot Sox. Yeah, the Red Sox are moving, so they're gonna have a nice new ballpark there in the International League. That's great knowledge on your part, by the way.
There you go.
Also, Vince Ruffino, our producer in the chat here, he spelt it perfectly. I don't know if he looked it up or if it was off the top of his head, but he says New Englanders know. So good for him. He nailed it.
There you go.
I mentioned Jake, my co-host for episode 2. We're going to be talking with Jen Richards, the CNO at Renown Medical Center, ACNO, Chief Nursing Officer at Renown Medical Center. We're going to get her take on what they've been dealing with and how the pandemic is ongoing and evolving in the Reno area and at their hospital. Also, Jessica Kleinschmidt, she's going to be a fun guest with us, baseball reporter and digital correspondent for NBC Sports Bay Area, and also a Reno native. She has some Aces ties. She's spent a lot of time at Greater Nevada Field, both as a fan and a reporter. So we're going to have Jess on with us as well. But first, I want to catch up with Jake a little bit. Obviously, your first time coming on. It's only our second episode, but I want to get a feel for your background and your role with the Aces. Let's start with your background. Where are you from, and how did you make it to Reno?
Yeah, so I was born and raised. Well, I was born in San Diego, California, so I claim San Diego, but I was technically raised in Temecula, California. I'll claim both there. So Temecula
60 miles away-ish?
Yeah. I'm right in the middle between – Temecula's right in the middle between San Diego and LA, so I had the choice to kind of pick those, and I went with San Diego. I don't think I've ever heard a bad thing about San Diego, so
never.
I'm pumped to kind of claim homage to that. But grew up in Temecula, California. Huge baseball fan, huge sports fan. Always growing up, everything that I've ever, good and bad things in my life are from baseball. Was lucky enough to play college baseball at Cal State San Marcos. We were a Division II school in the CCAA. We played teams like UCSD. We played Chico State, which you're obviously familiar with. Yeah, Sonoma State. Cal Poly Pomona was always a great school too. So it was fun 4 years there. And then when baseball was over, I kind of did the same thing a lot of student athletes do. What's next? And so kind of wanted to stay involved with baseball. As I mentioned, it's kind of brought me all my friends in my life. All my vacations were growing up playing travel baseball. So I wanted to stick with baseball. So I went to Arizona State University. I got a master's in sports journalism where I wanted to cover baseball. When I got there, loved the reporting side, but what I kind of realized is reporters are awesome, and I was a reporter during college and whatnot, but reporters need information, and who's the best people to give you those information is now my current role as communications manager. So I kind of wanted to kind of go to that more steady field. And I also like being on this side is I feel more part of the team. When I walk into the clubhouse, guys aren't like, oh, what kind of scoop is he trying to get out of me now type of thing. So I love being part of the team. Last year was my first season with the Aces out of Arizona State. So I was lucky enough. I know the old saying, right place, right time. I really was. Last year I was a seasonal intern. My boss, Jackson Gaskins, I learned a lot from Jackson. Thankful for kind of the things he taught me. He actually left after last season, and I was kind of just the natural replacement to take over his role. So After one season, I was lucky enough to get the promotion to communications manager. And part of my role is literally, like I said, is I wanted to be around baseball. And I would say that I'm probably the aficionado of baseball for the Aces, as well as yourself. So I do things like I facilitate with the media for interviews. I'm basically like the liaison between the front office and the clubhouse itself. So anytime sponsorship needs a player for this or that, or ticket sales needs a player for this or that, I'm the one making the ask. Finding a first pitch guy is always a struggle, but you got those sponsorship obligations and whatnot. But so I do that side of things. I write feature stories. I take care of the media guide. I write press releases, those things. But as you know, coming over from Stockton, in minor league baseball, you wear a ton of hats.
Mm-hmm.
My second hat is I manage the team travel. So that's a huge part of my job with the Aces. Booking plane flights, bus rides, hotels for 35 guys, kind of managing who's with the team, communicating with the farm director about who's going to be with the team, who's leaving, who's going up.
Which is really fun at AAA, by the way.
Yeah. No, we had a team record last year, 292 transactions. So maybe this year, whenever we get going again, we'll break that record. Hopefully not, but that's a cool experience for me. Like I said, wanting to be around baseball, like literally farm director calls me, hey, so-and-so's going up to the big leagues. Like, take them off the roster, whatever. Grant, I'm not the one breaking the news, but sure. at least I'm one of the first people to know. So I'm really thankful for my position here.
First of all, shout out to Jackson Gaskins. He was a big help to me last year when I filled in for Ryan Radke for about a week and a half. So big shout out to Jackson. I'm glad that they chose you as the natural replacement. Secondly, there's I didn't realize there's some parallels in our stories. Because I went to college and I was a journalism major, and sports journalism actually was one of the classes that I took. Ended up being the hardest class that I took in college. No joke. Like it was more in-depth reporting than I thought would be. You really had to kind of go out on limbs and work harder for the story there than you did with most other stories outside of the sports realm. So it was an eye-opener for me. So I wanted to be a sports writer. And then it changed when I had an internship at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. I was the press box coordinator for Marlins and Cardinals spring training. And then they have their high A teams there. And basically, I was the guy that was the media point person like you are right now for the Aces. I was that guy as an intern. So then I wanted to do PR. And then I ended up meeting somebody, Bo Fulgenetti, big influence in my life. I ended up just bringing me on the radio with him one day and was like, you know what, like we have a pretty good rapport. Like I should bring you to Stockton with me because I'm going to get that job. And when you graduate, you can join me. And that's kind of how it all happened. He left after a year and I stumbled into a career, but it's amazing how things kind of transpire like that. And to be honest, what you're doing right now was my dream job maybe 15 years ago. So you should feel, I'm just telling you, you should feel really fortunate to be where you are right now and with the organization you're with right now, because the Aces are obviously a special organization.
Yeah, no, I'm very thankful for being here. I'm turned 25 next week actually, so I realize I'm kind of young for this position, but I love wearing the multiple hats that you get the opportunity with in minor league baseball. Like I know my next job resume, like managing this travel budget is an awesome thing, but at the same time, writing feature stories is a completely different part of my job. So just being able to say a wide different ranges of things that I'm able to do here. It's awesome. And I really was right place, right time. I was actually in the Arizona Fall League. I left after my seasonal position. Took a part-time job in the Arizona Fall League for 2 months and kind of was just going to figure out what the next baseball job was going to be. And then once I got down to Arizona, Emily called me and just said, Jackson's leaving. Like, we want to offer you the job. So really thankful they gave me the opportunity to come back and had the trust in me to take on this role.
Hey, I'm thankful too. You're going to be a big part of my life whenever we get going here, and someone I'm going to lean on heavily. So thank you in advance, I guess, for the travel too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to be leaning on you. Like, you have more experience than me, admittedly. So, I mean, it's going to be a two-way thing here for sure.
Oh, hey, team effort is what it's all about.
There you go.
How are you doing in Reno under quarantine? What's it like up there right now?
I'm good. I'm very lucky. I have two roommates that I get along very well with. AJ Grimm is our social media manager, and Blake O'Brien's our creative manager. So we literally have PR, marketing, and graphics in the same house. So it's a very creative house. We get a lot of stuff done. Admittedly, maybe best conversations come at 10 p.m. when we're playing video games and those kind of things. So we all have our desk outside. I'm actually in my room right now. But we have three of our desk, and any email that comes in, we're like, hey, did you see this? Like, what can we do with this? Da, 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 da. So a lot of people are living by themselves right now, which I understand why you go stir crazy. But for me, quarantine life is good. I want to be at the ballpark, but as far as making the best out of the situation, I have a pretty good work situation here.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Is it more or less challenging working in that type of environment, living in the same environment as I was when I first moved to Stockton? It was three guys in one house, and we all worked for the Ports. And our best conversations, as you said, came with playing video games late at night. We'd talk about anything and work stuff. But is it more or less challenging right now from a work perspective for you?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it's a different set of challenges. Obviously, during the season, I mean, we'd be playing games right now, so I'd be, as I mentioned, running around trying to find a first pitch or trying to do this ask or make sure the game notes are turned in on time. Mm-hmm. Well, right now, I'm kind of coming up with things out of thin air as far as content wise. Like the challenge is trying to keep fans interested in baseball right now when there's no baseball being played. So it's definitely challenging for all three of us as a creative team, to come up with things that people want to watch, want to listen, want to be involved with the Aces. And Reno has a rich baseball history. So I'm lucky that, people are commenting things that happened before I was even here. So I'm like, oh, that's a good story idea, those kind of things. So it's a challenge, a different set of challenges, like I said, but I can't complain again, and kind of just taking it day by day, like I think everyone else is.
I think right now, kind of to your point where you're trying to come up with stuff out of thin air, I think right now, and something the Aces are doing extremely well with, is highlighting what's going on around the community, being a community partner, and really putting on a pedestal the people who are making that community tick right now, because obviously unprecedented times, and there are people that are doing unprecedented things. And I think you guys have done a great job highlighting what's been going on in the community. What has that been like to really intimately get to know the people in Reno that are doing these things right now?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, this is I'm going on my second year living in Reno, so just kind of understanding the culture here. And I think people have just an understanding of helping each other out. I don't know if it's just a Reno thing or a community thing or an Aces thing, but it just seems like people are looking for ways to get involved in the community. Obviously it's difficult because we wish we could be on the ground floor kind of helping people, but we're kind of just doing everything we can. Like, as you know, just hosting stuff in our parking lot with the food bank. We've hosted pet food giveaways, those kind of things. We had actually season ticket members in the past weeks that have been sewing masks for us that we're going to be selling. Different things like that. But I think you kind of mentioned it first, the Aces #1 platform in the community right now is just being a voice. We definitely encourage people to reach out to us if we can give them a voice. And this is part of the podcast, was we kind of just want to be a messaging opportunity for people to use. And we're happy to facilitate any way we can.
We also want to splice in some baseball. And before we end this segment and we talk with Jen Richards, who's a CNO at Renown, I want to get your top 5 Aces moments from 2019. Okay. You obviously saw the full season. I saw just a small sampling of the games. I want to get your top 5 Greater Nevada Field moments from a year ago.
Yeah, so I'm thankful you gave me a heads up on this the other day, just because there was a lot of moments in 2019. 2019 was,
to say that I gave you a heads up. This is supposed to be like off the top of your head, and you were going to sound genius, but that's okay. Like,
well, I've thought about these things a lot. So here we go, Vince chiming in the chat box. But
trying to make you look good, man.
Yeah. I mean, we could do top 10, and I could think of some stuff maybe, but
just keep it 5.
Yeah. Okay. There was a lot of good events. 2019 was definitely a year of the milestone. Kevin Crone became the all-time home run leader. Ildemaro Vargas became the all-time hit leader. Braden Shipley became the all-time win leader. So that was that was cool. That's an inside joke between Vince and us here about Widener, I guess. Basically, first pitch, couldn't find Widener. He was one of the guys I really wanted to catch my first pitch that day, and he was ducking me. But
love that. Always fun.
Love that. Found another guy though. So anyway, I want to go back to what we were talking about. Top 5 moments. There was a lot. Off the field, before I get on the field, off the field, I think by far the best moment was Kevin Crone was called up to the major leagues by his father, Chris Crone. We were kind of waiting for that to happen, and when it happened, that's everyone's dream.
Were you there when it happened?
No, they were actually on the road, and Jackson was going to work with our manager Croney, and Croney was open to even having a camera in his office when that happened for us, which was great. He was willing to share that moment with the world, but it actually happened on the road. But Kevin Crone was going absolutely off. Like, we knew it was going to happen at any day. He was putting up absolute video game numbers. But that was my favorite off the field moment in that sense. Quick story. I know we want to get into this interview with Renown, but my favorite personal. Okay. All right. Sorry. I didn't know if you were rushed here.
No, we're good.
I wanted to share the story. It's a really cool story that is personal to me. Basically, so it was supposed to be media day. This was like April 1st or something like that, April 2nd. Anyway, John Duplantier was assigned to us in Reno. And so last year, as you know, the major league season started about 6 or 7 days before the minor league season. So Dupe was assigned to us. All of the stuff was in Reno, but Dupe was in Houston still, because this was like 5 or 6 days between spring training and Reno. So basically the day before our first game, if you remember last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks got destroyed by the Dodgers in the first series. So their pitching staff was absolutely depleted. So John Duplantier was one of their top prospects at the time. We knew he was going to go up at some point, but we didn't know it was going to be before our season actually started. So it was supposed to be media day, and as a seasonal intern, I was going to be a big part of this media day, helping Jackson, just help facilitating people, all the whole 9 yards.
I love this story, by the way. I know it, and I love it.
Okay, yeah. So about 9 p.m. at night, like I had just gotten off the phone with Jackson, and he was like, all right, you're going to do this and that for me tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, cool. He calls back about 20 minutes later. He's like, change of plans. Like, you're getting on a plane to San Diego. I booked your flight to noon tomorrow. And I was like, what? And he's like, you're from San Diego. Like, don't you want to go back? And I was like, yeah. And for what? So basically, John Duplantier got called up to pitch in San Diego that night. And so Dupe actually was telling me, or I'll get to this part of the story, but I want to tell my side of the story first. Basically, the Diamondbacks clubhouse manager called me and was just like, hey, like, we need Dupe's stuff, blah, blah, blah. The only tip that he gave me was like, that I was given was hold Dupe's glasses on the carry-on, because if this bag gets lost, we can find him cleats, we can find him a glove, blah, 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 blah. So basically, as like the intern, I just hopped on a plane. I hopped on a plane to San Diego that next day. I'm holding John Duplantier's glasses in my bag, hoping that his bag doesn't get lost on the thing. So basically, I needed to deliver this stuff to Dupe for him to make his major league debut in San Diego that night. And so no one knew this except for me. At this point, the news that Dupe was going up hadn't even broken or whatever. So I was carrying this, soon to be major leaguer stuff through the airport. Just not trying to mess it up, basically. So the game was at 7 p.m. that night. My plane went from Reno to Salt Lake. I remember there was like an hour and a half layover in Salt Lake, and I landed in San Diego at like 4:30 p.m. So then I took an Uber from the airport with all Dupe stuff, got there fine. I had the glasses fine. I basically went to San Diego outside of Petco Park. Their clubhouse manager, met me out there. I handed them off the stuff. The D-backs were incredible to me. They tipped me $200. They gave me four tickets to the game, and they gave me a night stay at Omni Hotel. Like, where
the Omni. That's big league,
so,
literally big league.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's where the players stay. Yeah. So that was just an incredible, like, I was telling all my friends, like, hey, like, I'm carrying this soon to be major leaguer stuff through the airport right now. Like, I need to get it to them. And I think that's kind of like why you get into this job, to have these little stories like this to kind of to almost brag about it. Like, it was, and Dupe was the nicest guy in the world. Like, I'm so happy to be a small part of his debut. And he actually went out through 3 shutout innings, earned a save that night. I was there. So it was awesome to do that.
Phenomenal.
Yes. All right. We need to get to these five moments. First moment, Aces hit four home runs in the ninth inning. It was June 4th against the Nashville Sounds. So we were trailing by 5 runs, and we ended up hitting 4 home runs and walked off by Matt Caesar to win the game. So that was crazy. As you know, last year was so many home runs hit. So 4 in 1 inning wasn't really a surprise there. Let's see. What I have at number 4 here. It was April 25th. It was against Fresno, and it was Tim LaCastro, who doesn't hit a lot of home runs, and then Kevin Crone, who does hit a lot of home runs. They both had 3 homers in the same game. So, like, I had never seen that before. That was insane. We reached out to a live sports bureau to see if it had ever happened, and the last time it happened on record was 2001 with Jeremy Burnett's and Richie Sexton. So
those are couple names. Yeah,
a couple throwback names there for the Brewers. Number 3 was definitely, we had a game last year. It was 25-8. It was absolutely bonkers game. The Aces hit 10 home runs as a team, and that wasn't even like an actual note in the game. So the big note was Yasmani Tomas hit 4 home runs in the game, and Matt Caesar cycled in the same game. So I had never seen anything like that. That was absolutely insane to watch. That was like it was just a day game, a regular day game, and these guys go absolutely bonkers. So I looked that one up. That one actually wasn't that difficult to figure out because there's not many 4 home run games. So the only other time on record of that was 1932 with the New York Yankees when Lou Gehrig hit 4 home runs and Tony Lazzeri cycled. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Going back to those Yankees of the early 30s.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if it's happened in the minor leagues, but it might have or not. But sure. In the major leagues, that was relatively easy to find. But yeah, those Yankee teams. Growing up a Red Sox fan, we don't need to talk about the Yankees.
Amen.
Yeah. Number 2, the Aces completed their largest comeback in franchise history on April 27th. We were down 13-5 going into the ninth inning. We actually were down 12-2 at one point. But basically, we were down 13-5, and we rallied we were down 13-10, and the unlikeliest of heroes, Andrew Applin, came up, was hitting like 100 at the time. He actually led off the inning with a walk to start the rally. And then he came up with the bases loaded, 2 outs, 1-2 count. The Nationals had Tanner Rainey pitching, who actually got innings for the Nationals in their World Series run this year. So that was kind of an interesting note. But anyway, Andrew Applin turns like a 99-mile-an-hour fastball over the right field wall. Aces walk it off. Like, there was nobody in the stands. Like, we were down 13-5 going into the ninth inning. Like, that was, for people that were there, like, it was an insane scene, even, the 10 people that were in the stands. So I'll definitely remember that forever. And then number 1 is got to be the Cody Decker walk-off into retirement. Cody Decker's an absolute character. I remember talking to him that day, and that this is kind of like another thing. Like, he basically told us that he was retiring. He told the team that he was retiring, but no one else knew. He wanted to make his own announcement retirement on his own in El Paso. He's got a large following there in El Paso. So he told us, but not many people knew. But anyway, this was July 5th. The Aces were down. He hit a two-run walk-off home run. And no one it was weird. Like, it was a packed game. Like, it was a summer game, but no one in the stands knew that he was retiring. But for some reason, like, when he hit this walk-off home run, it was like everyone knew, like, that was it. Like, what an incredible way to go out. Like, everyone on the team knew, so they were hugging him. Like, he got a curtain call. The crowd. I mean, people have seen walk-off home runs before, but it was just something about this one walk-off home run that seemed like everyone knew. Like, that was just the storybook ending that Cody deserved. And obviously, everyone wants to spend more time in the big leagues, but he always had a great attitude about it and kind of made the best of his minor league career. And he's obviously capitalizing it off now. And that type of thing. And that moment was awesome. Talking to him after the game, before the game actually started out, I knew that where was I going with this? Basically, I asked him, I was like, "Oh, I heard it's going to be your last game. Like, you're going to go out with fireworks." And he literally just said, "I'll try." So I was like, well, there you go.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah. Sorry, one more thing on the Decker thing I want to add is he's on NSN, where we're on Nevada Sports Network, we're re-airing games every Thursday and Saturday. So that Decker game is coming up next Thursday, and Cody Decker is he's gonna Zoom call into Nevada Sportsnet to be interviewed by them, and then also he's gonna do a live Q&A on our Reno Aces Instagram and Facebook. I'm not sure. Is it Vince? Can you help me out on that? Is it Facebook or is it Instagram?
It will be on Instagram Live at Reno
Okay.
on Instagram, and also at Antihero Baseball on Instagram.
Yeah. So thanks for the help there, Vince. But Cody's awesome. He loved his time in Reno. We liked having him here. So he's going to be answering a Q&A on Instagram Live.
Dude, those are 5 ridiculous moments. I mean, some you might go a lifetime of watching baseball and not see any of those, and you see all that happen in one season. I mean, it just goes to show you what a special game it is. And in terms of an actual season, you know, you have the football season, the basketball season, the hockey season. Like, there's no season like baseball for me because of things like this.
Yeah, I mean, baseball, like, you hear all the crazy stats all the time about, you know, who has the best, you know, average on Tuesdays, you know, in the winter, but little things like this, obviously these were, you know, a lot of home runs and those things are a little bit, you know, more notable, but it's just insane about what you see, you know, from a day-to-day basis, especially with the Aces last year. Like, and it was my first year, so it was fun to watch.
Well, I'm going to drop in, and this is pales in comparison to your moments, but I had a game where Ben DeLuzio made 2 insane catches, and it wound up on SportsCenter's top 10. That was one of the games I was filling in for Ryan, and DeLuzio had 2 catches. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, no, I absolutely remember. Ben DeLuzio is a great guy. I remember he shared the SportsCenter clip, and he was pumped. Anytime you get the players actually pumped is a good win. You get them to share stuff. But your call, it was a great call. I know when you got hired, that was the first call I put on the Beirut Reno Aces 2019 reels. So
appreciate you.
Yeah, that was fun. I remember that series wasn't an awesome one for the Aces.
No.
Yeah, they had been struggling a little bit, but that first game was fun to watch.
Yes, sir. Well, Jake, dude, I'm looking forward to working with you. I can't wait to get up there. Now that I really can't wait for baseball, hearing your top 5 moments from 2019. I need 2020 to happen right now. But, but we'll catch up again, you and I, when we leave the pod here in just a little bit. But first, we're going to have back-to-back guests. We're going to hear from Jen Richards, a CNO at Renown Medical Center. Also, Jessica Kleinschmidt, baseball reporter, digital correspondent for NBC Sports Bay Area. And we'll hear from both of those people next on Aces Loaded. Continuing on the Aces Loaded podcast, we are joined by somebody who's on the front lines right now and one of the heroes among us, Jen Richards. She is the Chief Nursing Officer of Acute Services at Renown Medical Center. Jen, first of all, thank you for taking the time. I know you have a lot going on right now. How are you guys doing, first and foremost?
You know, I think we're doing well. We have an incredibly engaged, just amazing team that is inspiring every single day. And I think that everybody is digging in and doing what they need to do to rise to this challenge. And I think we're doing a really great job of that.
I kind of want you to take us through the process, and I'm intimately familiar with it because my wife's an ER nurse and a nurse educator here in Lodi, California. And I know the big stress for her and her staff the last few weeks was preparing for, you know, the potential tidal wave to come. Did you guys go through something similar at Renown?
Yes, we've actually been going through that over the last several weeks. So we've been spending a huge amount of our time planning and preparing for what this could look like in our community over the coming days and weeks. And to that end, I think you may be aware that we are building what's called an alternate care site in the first 2 floors of our parking structure. And so that's part of the planning that's gone on. That also requires that you plan a staffing model that could take care of a large number of patients, that you plan for equipment and supplies and all of those things. And so there's a team of us that have been spending all of our time over the last couple of weeks doing just that.
As far as the alternate care site goes, I know with my wife and her team, they set up tents outside kind of near the ambulance bay at their hospital. What does yours look like? I know you mentioned the parking area.
Yeah, so we have contractors and construction teams in the first 2 floors of the parking garage right now. They are actually creating a unit-like environment. And so it has linoleum floors. It will have spaces for a number of patients to be cared for in that space. So it won't look exactly like a hospital unit, but it'll look very similar. And that's what we're really trying to accomplish. We also have an alternate care site, a medical structure in our parking lot of the emergency department. So in the front area, just like what you described your wife has there in Lodi.
Mm-hmm.
And that tent is for us to provide care to patients who are coming to the emergency department for respiratory illness symptoms. And so we've been utilizing that for the past several weeks as well.
Can you walk us through the logistics of a patient potentially needing services at the ER? And I know there are different protocols for potential COVID patients, and then, say somebody comes in with a broken arm. Can you walk us through what those might look like, just so people who are watching might have more awareness?
Sure, absolutely. So I think first and foremost, the ER is not the place that everyone needs to go. And so if people are feeling ill, feeling like they're having respiratory symptoms, so cough, sore throat, fever, those types of things, the first thing that they should do is try to have a virtual visit. We have a nurse triage line that fields hundreds of calls. So people call in and they describe their symptoms, and then that nurse on the other end of the line can help best point them in the right direction for where they should receive their care. And often that will be a virtual visit. So we would encourage people not to come to the emergency department unless they're having emergency care needs. And so that's really important. So the virtual visit is a great option. We also have at Renown 2 respiratory illness clinics. So 2 of our urgent cares are specifically designed to care for respiratory illness patients who also don't require emergency room care, but might require that urgent care. And so there are other options that we would want people to utilize first before they came to the emergency department. If they came to the emergency department, they would be screened for their respiratory symptoms and also for kind of what the CDC has looked at historically from a person under investigation criteria. And so they would have that screening, and then they would be directed into that tent, the medical structure that I described that's out in that valet area of our ER, or into the emergency department if they had something that wasn't a respiratory type symptom.
Let me ask you this. How are you guys doing as far as PPE goes? I know, here in Lodi, they've had to get a little bit creative at times and just to make sure that they have enough. How are you guys doing with that?
We're getting very creative as well. So we are continuing to work daily to source all of the places that we can to get PPE and make sure that we have a sufficient supply. That can be a challenge, as you've likely paid attention to the news nationally and internationally. And so it's something that we're getting creative about in our community as well. We've had a huge outpouring of community support for this. So we get about 250 to 300 homemade masks that come in every single day to Renown from our community. And we're utilizing those for our healthcare workers who wear a surgical or an isolation mask or an N95 mask. They can use those as mask covers. And then we also have a Renown sanctioned pattern that we've put out to our community. And so we are utilizing those masks that come in for our employees who don't actually work in patient care areas, so that we can have masks on everybody in our clinical settings in the hospitals and our medical group locations. And then we're reserving and preserving our PPE for our healthcare providers. So those isolation masks, the N95s, our clinical care providers are utilizing those in the clinical care setting. So we've got a lot of creative stuff going on here too.
I could only imagine. We're talking with Jen Richards, the Chief Nursing Officer of Acute Services at Renown Medical Center. What's the time frame you guys have been told? I know here in California, Northern California, where we are, they say in the next couple of weeks they're expecting things to peak. Is it the same there in Northern Nevada?
I think that, it depends on the models that you look at, and we're following those very closely. I think that there's probably some consistency to that. So we're anticipating needing to be ready within the next couple of weeks for what will start to be a surge that climbs up to a peak. So that is consistent with what we're looking at as well.
Can you take me through your wave of emotions the last couple of weeks? I keep bringing up my wife, but obviously I got to see firsthand kind of the emotions that she went through, as far as maybe the panic about maybe not being prepared enough, the anxiety over going in and being exposed and thus exposing others. Can you take us, without getting too personal, can you take us through the emotions that you may have felt the last couple of weeks?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, when we started, I am inspired every single day that I walk into this hospital about the care providers that we have. It's really incredible when you see people come together and work toward a common goal. And we do that every single day in healthcare. This just amplifies it to another level. And so, I think that I've been incredibly inspired. There have been times where you sit back and, you start to think, gosh, if this actually happens the way that it could, are we going to be prepared? And I am so proud of our team and our organization. I'm going to get choked up here when I'm talking about this. Sorry.
I understand.
Because I think that no matter what, we will have done the absolute best that we can to prepare the best way that we can to care for our community. And that just warms my heart every single minute of every day.
That's very well said. And I can just say that you guys are inspiring us. I might get emotional too. I'm obviously pretty close to someone in your shoes, but you guys are inspiring us too every single day. And thank you is not sufficient enough. Is there anything the community can do to help you guys? I know, for me personally, I always ask my wife, like, can I do anything at the hospital to make it easier? And the tough thing is you really can't be out and around the hospital, and they're not even taking volunteers right now. So that being said, if someone wants to help you guys, what's the best thing they can do?
So I think that if people are interested in, sewing masks, sewing surgical gowns, not surgical gowns, isolation gowns, we've got a pattern out there for that. We've got a pattern out there for surgical caps that people can sew. So we've got a lot of opportunity that way. But what I would say is that from a healthcare provider's perspective, the best thing that people can do is to follow what our community and our state and our country has put forth in terms of the guidelines to stay at home. So stay at home, work from home if you can. Don't do non-essential discretionary outings. Don't travel. Don't do discretionary travel if you don't have to. If you have to go out for whatever reason, if it's to go to the grocery store, stay 6 feet away from other people. Do that social distancing that is so important. Wear a mask. So the CDC came out with recommendations that if people are out, they should wear some kind of covering over their face. It should be a homemade mask because we should be preserving that PPE for our healthcare providers. Don't have social gatherings. Don't have play dates. I know that it's really tempting to do that, but I think people can get really creative and do things like Zoom happy hours or Zoom dinner parties, Zoom play dates. Do that. Don't have social gatherings. Wash your hands, disinfect things frequently, and then really just think about at the very basic level how this virus can spread. So it can be one person to one person who can then potentially spread it to many more people. If you think about friends and family members and coworkers for people that can't work from home in this situation. And I think about our nurses who had a creative way to try to message this to our community, and it kind of went viral on social media. They created a sign that essentially said, we come to work every day for you. Please stay home for us. And that is so important. That's what people can do for our healthcare workers who come in and pour their hearts into what they do every single day.
Could not have said it better myself. I just want to follow up with one quick element. If people do want to make things for you guys, like the masks and the gowns, what's the safest way they can get those to you?
Yeah, so we have a drop-off station out at our Mill Street valet entrance. And so people can drop off those masks there, I believe, but don't quote me on this 100%. I believe it's from 9 to 5 every single day. We can double check that for sure. And then we also have those patterns out on our renown.org website under the donation section. And so if people want to look at that, and they'll also get the exact times that drop-off location is open from that website, that would be great.
Jen, I can't thank you enough for your time, for being on with us. I could tell you this, I know when baseball season starts, I know we at the Aces, we're gonna do something pretty big for you guys and make sure that we honor you guys for all the hard work that you did during this time. I personally would love to have you in the broadcast booth with me. I'd actually like to do a real happy hour with you and buy you an actual drink. And if you want to sit down and have one with me and enjoy a baseball game, that's on me for all of your hard work and dedication. And please pass our thanks along to your staff as well. We appreciate it.
We'll absolutely do that. Thank you for being such great partners to us. We really appreciate everything that you all do every day as well.
Thank you, Jen. Stay safe and God bless. Jen Richards, the Chief Nursing Officer of Acute Services at Renown Medical Center. So grateful that she joined us today.
Hi, my name is Eric Edelstein, and I'm the president of the Reno Aces Baseball Club. I want to personally thank you on behalf of our entire organization for all of your efforts during this COVID-19 pandemic.
We are currently preaching social distancing to our employees and our fans.
And we'll take any additional advised precautions to make your lives easier during these challenging times.
Until then, I hope you and your loved ones are safe and healthy. You have always been all in for us, and we are now all in for you. I can't wait to welcome you back to Greater Nevada Field soon.
Welcome back to Aces Loaded. We are joined now by Jessica Kleinschmidt, baseball reporter and digital correspondent for NBC Sports Bay Area, also a Reno native. Big part of the reason why we're having her on, just a fun guest for episode 2. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us. And how are you holding up? Are you in San Francisco right now?
I'm in the Bay Area, some more East Bay, but yeah, it's we're at the heart of it all. So kind of the beginning of all of the quarantine-ness, but I'm hanging in there, developing my own little routine. It's just different. You know, I'm used to going in the city every day, and now I'm just walking a few feet over from my bed to my desk. So it's a little bit different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, I feel like we have something in common. Like I feel like we're both kind of social animals, and now you're, especially in when it's 80 degrees and it's baseball season, you're trapped inside. You feel kind of like a caged bird a little bit. Yeah,
and I thought I was a homebody, but this is kind of pushing it. So it's, I'm, like you said, I'm very social and I miss my friends, and I really I was planning a trip to Reno, but we're making sure that my mom's safe and all my family's safe. So I'm going to avoid that as much as possible, but I'm really tempted.
Yeah, I was planning a trip to Reno too, and it was a 6-month trip to Reno.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of bummed that it's on hold. We'll get to that in a little bit. First off, I want to thank you for the kind words you said about me when I got the Aces job. You were one of the first people to reach out to me on Twitter, and it meant a lot. So thank you so much for that.
No, there's nobody better for the job. I mean, I'm obsessed with Ryan Radke. He did a beautiful job. He really brought like a really unique, a beautiful voice to the game first and foremost, but he was such a pro, and I genuinely loved his work, and I don't feel like anybody else could fill his shoes, period. But I think you're a close second. That's not a bad thing. I don't mean that in a rude way.
I am honored, and I've said it many times. I'm honored to be following him, and it means a lot to be following him, to be chosen to follow him. First of all, I'm going to start with a real hard hitting one for you. And this is, for anybody that really does know you. we're in a pandemic, and we're in a chicken wing surplus. So
Yeah.
how have you dealt with both of these simultaneously?
I'm sad and my anxiety's been high, but I'm able to perfect my chicken wing recipe. Still working on it. It's more or less like how I'm trying to cook them. The sauce I'm kind of confident in, but I'm figuring out, do I want them grilled? Do I want them baked? Do I want them deep fried? So, it's tough decisions out there.
I didn't realize that you were like in the business of actually making them for yourself. I just thought you would be all about going out and getting them.
No, because this is like on my bucket list, is to create my own buffalo wing sauce, like my own like line of sauces.
Wow.
And weird career goal, I know, but I wanted to get that done, but it's all about how you cook them. I feel like that's the most important part. And I'm a competitive person and I can't go out and like work out or do anything right now. So that's my competition, is perfecting the wing cooking ability.
For what it's worth, I'm a deep fried guy. I feel like there's nothing.
Feel that's the safe way. Yeah.
There's nothing like a good deep fried way. What's the best wing you've ever had?
Believe it or not, there's actually a Bully's in Reno has a really good teriyaki sauce. I really suggest it. But the best wing I actually have ever had was at a Hard Rock hotel, and that was in Tahoe, and they grilled them. And we actually ordered them. I was like, no, I want them deep fried, but they made a mistake and grilled them. And she brought them out. And I was like, that doesn't look deep fried. And she said, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. And then she said, but just trust me. And they were just phenomenal. So I think about those wings every single day. And you were in Tahoe eating wings. Like, what is better than that?
There's not much better than that. The Stick in Reno, have you been there?
I have, but I don't think I've had their wings. You know what? I did hear they were good, but also the other really good wings are at Noble Pie. They have amazing.
I've had those. They're phenomenal.
So good.
Vince, our producer here, Vince Ruffino, who was my co-host last week, he submitted the Stick as the best wings in Reno.
I did hear it. So that's a very well-known rumor. So that's good.
For what it's worth, my favorite wing I've ever had is a place called Dino's in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And they have a wing called Sweet and Hot. It's the flavor. It's right down the road from the old Rolling Rock Brewery.
Okay.
And it was like a magical combination of, I think, of the wings and the fresh Rolling Rock back when they actually brewed it in Latrobe.
Right.
But, if you ever get a chance, just outside of Pittsburgh, Dino's.
Okay. I'm honestly going to remember that. I'm always looking for the best wing places anytime I travel.
Dude, you'll appreciate this story. So I know we're going off the rails, but since we're on wings, so around November 1st, I kind of got on this kick, and I'm like, I'm going to eat more like vegan, vegetarian, and I'm like the consummate meat eater. Like I am a meat guy, but watched Game Changers. I don't know if you saw the doc on Netflix, but I've kind of wanted to get more into like vegetarian type style.
Yeah.
Animal thing and ethics, and makes you feel better and all that.
Totally understand. Yeah.
So November 1st, I'm like, I'm going to do this. So had a great first few days at home. And then I had to travel to Hawaii with the Pacific basketball team. And I had told everybody on the trip, like, we have a couple of vegans on the team, our coaches. And I was like, I'm doing this with you guys. I'm going to do it. And so our head coach, Damon Stoudemire, is like, you ain't going to do it. And I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm committed. So we get to the hotel. And what do you think they bring out? Like, after a long travel day, these people come in with 2 huge vats of like the most delicious wings that you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so Stoudemire looks at me and he's like, so what you gonna do now? It's like, and I was dying inside. I'm like, I've never passed up wings, like let alone wings that look this good.
Did you pass up? You passed
them up. I passed them up. I had a Brussels sprouts bowl.
Okay.
And
well, my best friend, one of my best friends in Reno, she's vegan, but she'll cheat on her veganism for those Noble Pie wings.
Yeah. I've kind of struck a balance now where I'm like mostly vegan, vegetarian if I can, but I will have my moments where if it's a treat, I'll allow myself. So I've kind of struck that.
I gotcha. I feel you.
So, let's talk about you. Everybody misses baseball right now. I think you and I are both, the top of the list of people that would be right in it right now. How has this changed your role with NBC Bay Area, if at all?
It's actually been a good thing, only from the fact that I get to be a little bit more creative in some of the stuff I get to write. But it was kind of heartbreaking. I had a really big podcast that was supposed to come out, all baseball, not just A's, not just Giants. And we had to push that back, unfortunately. And that's probably the biggest thing that I'm really upset about, only because it was a good combination of being like trying to fine tune my reporter skills, but also introduce the game of baseball to people who may not know it and how new it is and how the different digital social platforms are out there, and trying to bring more fans into it, especially the younger crowds, without changing the game. And, I had really fun interviews with Matt Chapman and Archie Bradley, which was really cool because obviously I covered him with the Aces, and Christian Walker, and then, a bunch of the Giants players. Like I never actually had a sit down interview with Buster Posey ever, and I got to do that. So that got pushed back. And of course there aren't any games to kind of do the regular reporter duties, but I get to be more creative and cover the other sports, which is something that I've always kind of wanted to do, because I can write about baseball and talk about baseball in my sleep, but I really want to get to know more of those sports. And luckily with NBC Bay Area, we could talk about the Warriors and the Niners and the Giants a lot more. And those three teams aren't the ones that I'm used to covering so much. So I like the challenge of that.
But the podcast will come out, right? Like it's just kind of on hold for now.
They said when the season starts. So let's, God willing. But maybe something different will happen if there is no baseball this season. I'm hoping there is, but there's so many good interviews on there that are banked that I'm hoping that it does happen. But for now, it's just being pushed back a ways.
I wasn't going to go here, but you kind of touched on it. I'll tell you where I stand on this. I'm very much a traditionalist when it comes to baseball in terms of, not wanting to change a lot about the game. I know there's been talks about modifying certain areas of the game to try and attract that new demographic. Where do you stand on that? And if you think there can be changes made, what do you?
I feel like I'm lucky enough to where I want to say like an elder millennial, where I was not born, with an iPhone in my hand, but I didn't get my first cell phone until my sophomore year of high school. So, kids are getting them, when they're 3 right now. So it's crazy. So I respect the old school game. Like I love, the unwritten rules, but I also respect social media enough to know that we're so connected to these players, and just look how beautiful the social media aspects are of the game. Like whether it is a minor league promotional night or anything like that. So it's really important, I feel, to find that balance. Like even to the point where if you think a guy's funny on Twitter, like you have a Dan Herron personality or something like that, you want to go out to a Diamondbacks game and see what he's a part of and everything like that. And I think that's important. You want to have FOMO, and you want to make sure that, or when you're following me on Twitter, if you want to feel like you want to go to an A's game because I found this fun little nugget about Ramon Laureano or something like that, there's still respect to the old school game, but also you have to kind of embrace it. And I understand what Rob Manfred's doing to a certain point, but there's also like things that it's like, just leave it alone, but I also appreciate the discussions that are happening with it. Like even, in November, Mike Fiers blowing the whistle on the Astros made us talk about baseball in November. People that hate baseball were talking about baseball, and that's such a beautiful thing for me who is obsessed with the game. So I see both sides of it, but I don't want it to be so cheesy to the point where like I don't recognize this game anymore. And especially with a game that's difficult to alter, and there's so many old school, like I'm a 31-year-old woman, and the demographic is a 55-plus-year-old white man. I am none of those things, but I want people to know that we can all kind of have the commonality of baseball. Just don't try to sex it up too much. Just respect it, and just bring out the funkiness, highlight the fun, because it is fun, but don't water down too much to where you're not sure what you're watching anymore.
I think that's well said. I think I'm all about the fun outside of the field and let the kids play and all that. But I think on the field, where they want to incorporate all these rules for pace play and all that, I think it can kind of get bogged down. And I think the irony, for me, at least in the last couple of years of watching, is that they've tried to incorporate so many of these elements, and the games have been longer, especially the games at the minor league level that I've watched have been longer. So for me, there's just kind of a weird compare and contrast of what they want to do and how it's actually panning out. Does that make sense?
It does. And like, just for me personally, I try to find the balance of the fun, and I want people to take me seriously, but I can't do one or the other. I have to be right in the middle. So I try to think about that when I'm looking at the game overall and what I feel I should be covering or what I shouldn't be, or what do I feel like certain people want to consume, because people aren't really going out to games as much anymore, and I want them to do that. So I try to give them, like I said, the FOMO and making it fun, and even just come out to socialize. Like that's okay too, but I want more eyes on the game, and just sit with me, have a 5-minute conversation. We can have a beer, and I can promise you I'll make you fall in love with the game. It's not hard at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Take us through your journey from Reno to where you are now, and tell those who are not familiar with you how your career evolved from your time in Reno and growing up there.
It was a hell of a journey, man. Like I've always wanted to do this. I knew from the moment I was 12 years old, I was going to work in baseball. I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to be the first woman to ever play Major League Baseball. That didn't happen because I did try out. I was trying to try out for my high school, and I was told I couldn't do it. They're like, no, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying that's the reason I'm not playing baseball. I just wasn't given the chance. Apparently you have to be like really good and hit like 100-mile-an-hour balls. I didn't know that. So I decided, well, I'm going to just talk about the sport for a living. So I was actually working for the federal government, the Bureau of Land Management, and I was blogging for a place. And I just kind of sat there one day and thought, you know what, like I'm going to really give this baseball reporter thing a try. So I quit my job after 8 years and just decided to go for it. I moved to the Bay Area for a little bit, didn't like it, so moved back. But that's when I got my first shot with FanDuel. And FanDuel wasn't just about us writing about daily fantasy sports. It was actually, we were doing content. And I lived in Reno at the time. And Shane Ryder, who was the former media person, was great. He gave me my first like credential, which is really cool. And I remember I showed up at Aces Media Day, scared to death. It was right after Evan Marshall had gotten hit in the face, and it was one of the scariest moments ever. And I saw him, and I wanted to talk to him, but I was so nervous. And it turns out, so Shane told me, like, don't talk to him. He's really emotional about it. Evan Marshall's one of my best friends now, and I never thought that would happen. I thought that was really cool, like the full circle moment, because I got to witness it, and then now him and I talk about it, and it's just weird that I was scared to talk to him about that 5 years ago. So I did the FanDuel thing. I broke Clint Barmas's retirement news while he was in Reno, and that was like the coolest moment probably ever that I got to do, probably top 5.
Isn't it crazy to break news like a rush to when you break some news?
I did. It was like the coolest thing, and like my name was on Roto World, and like that was a really cool thing. And just I grew up watching Clint Barmas play, and I was sitting there, and he was happy to talk to me and everything like that. And Shane gave me the interview, and he just really believed in me. Shane was like, I want to help you, and I think you're going to do good things. And I'm really thankful for that. And then I was kind of in between jobs, but then that's when MLB hired me for Cut 4. And the only outlet I really had to go to was the Reno Aces. So I would cover the guys, visiting, and I'd cover Anthony Bonda, and I would cover, and you want to talk about having to interview a guy after throwing at Greater Nevada Field, bless their hearts, man. I'm like, if you can survive that, like you're good. And a couple of the guys, actually Christian Walker, I think, and Archie Bradley recently told me they would rather pitch at Coors than they would at Greater Nevada. And so just to watch on both sides, you had pitchers that were struggling to throw, but you had the PCL ego of the bats, and that was really cool to watch. And seeing that uptick in the slugging percentage was really cool. And so I was doing that. And then I was working for Cut 4 for about a year and a half or so, and NBC recruited me. And I was like, I don't want to go back to the Bay Area. Like, I hated it there. But the moment I touched foot here, November 2018, I've just fallen in love with it. And it's been challenging. And like I said, baseball comes so easy for me, but to come here in November when the Warriors are heading to the finals, you get like a sense of, okay, I have to adjust to all these different things. And that's been kind of cool from this, because I'm used to adjusting from that perspective. But, the first on-camera sit-down interview, the first breaking news, the first real baseball field I got to fall in love with was the Aces. And I was watching them when I was just a fan, and I got to see Eric Burns make all those diving catches, and, all the girls were in love with Trent Olchin and all of those cool things. Rusty Ryle, I was actually on a show with him.
The Wayback Machine with Rusty
Ryle. Way back.
I remember him in Visalia.
Yeah, the great guys. And it was just like a cool thing for me, because even, growing up a baseball girl, to see the guys that you grew up watching that not only on a field so close to you, but I was covering them. And now, I just sat down with Archie Bradley, and he remembered me from when I covered him when he was a prospect. He's 5 years in the league now. It's crazy. And it just made me feel like, wow, like I'm glad I kept pushing, because I love Reno, but it's just nobody had faith in me. They really didn't. Maybe my best friend and my mom, and everybody else is like, you're not going to do anything. Like, come on, Jess, like that's not actually going to happen. And now they see me on TV, so they can shove it.
There you go. Now look at you.
Now look at me.
Jessica Kleinschmidt, baseball reporter, digital correspondent for NBC Sports Bay Area. I want to take you back in time to 2009, the opening of Greater Nevada Field. Do you remember what the feeling was in your hometown when the Aces came?
I do. And I remember me personally, it was like right when I moved out. So I was living near, like right off of Evans. So I was living really close. It was like, I just moved out. I was 19. It was really cool. And I was just excited because it was like the first, I felt like kind of snooty. I was like, oh, I'm going to know all these players. And it was really cool. And I get there, I'm with my brother, and like, it was just such a boost for Reno because there's so many sports fans out there, but they're so kind of used to just the Nevada Wolfpack, which is great. But, going to a Nevada football game, all we really did was party. So that I didn't really get into the sports aspect of it. And you can't really find anybody who's a baseball nerd like you. And so I got there, my brother fell in love with it. We got to watch Willie Mo Pena, which was really cool. And like just dudes that you grew up watching are in your front yard. And the Diamondbacks organization was so unique because of, growing up an A's fan, they don't stay on the A's. So, you're going to be watching a former A's somewhere, and that was really cool. And so, I don't know, there were just pure joy and like a little bit more of the community and stuff like that. And then, just for me watching from the back, I guess that behind the scenes of all the stuff that the minor leagues have to do. But it was cool. It was a good refresher to get me ready for what I'm doing now. But I just remember a lot of people being so excited for that. And big moments that happened, like Tim Lincecum was there and stuff like that you couldn't, repeat, especially because there's so many Giants fans there. And I don't know, I just remember really cool feelings about going to that ballpark. And it makes me smile so much. I loved that place.
Speaking of the community, like it really struck me when I was up there for a couple of weeks last year filling in for Rads. How much it has grown, especially the area around the ballpark and all of the new elements that have come into downtown and everything on the Riverwalk. Does it strike you when you go back to Reno, just how much it's evolved and how special a place it really has become?
Very much so. I'm from North Valley, so I'm like in the smaller community out there, and Midtown's very up and coming. It reminds me of like a mini Oakland almost. Like it's just it has so many different things, and you and I talked about this, all the cool breweries they have there and good food, and I'm glad more people are coming there. My mom's not too happy about it. She likes the small town feel. She's like, there's so many people here, and I think that that's good. People are discovering it, and that's good. And I just feel like from when I mean, obviously I grew up in like the boonies. I grew up all the way in Lemon Valley, but I loved that. I loved like driving and almost getting hit by a horse. Like that was the things. Those were the things that I liked, and like Reno's so unique, and I definitely didn't appreciate it until I left, and I missed the small town feel and like knowing where I was going half the time, and I miss the people, especially my friends and family and stuff. But it's just such a unique town, and it's so different from what it was 10 years ago, like literally night and day. And it's growing, and where I used to live or where my mom lives now, there's all these houses, and there was nothing back there, back behind North Valley's high school. And so even the fact that the growing is coming all the way out into the valleys is kind of cool to see too. But yeah, it feels like it's just like growing into this adult now.
Yeah, I simultaneously feel like I'm being cheated out of baseball and being in Reno. Like it's always been one of my favorite places to go. With my friends, it's a 2.5 hour drive from Stockton, and we'd go and just sit at Calneva and the bad karaoke for a night or two. And but now, I mean, there's so much more outside of that's going on. But I want to ask you, what do you feel like I should be most excited about when I finally get up to Reno, like in terms of the area and things to do?
I feel like it's very outdoorsy, which I noticed. And I noticed that because everybody was trying to get me to go hiking, like right before I was leaving. I was like, where did y'all come from? I wish I would have taken more advantage of going to Tahoe as much as I would have liked. I mean, I'm not far away from it now, but I went from a 30 to 45-minute drive, and now it's a few hours for me. And I really wish I took more advantage of that. And like, they have the really cool outdoor breweries down in Midtown now, and I wish I did more of that. And it's actually a very well-known, like unknown art kind of town. There's a lot of cool art there by very local artists, and
a lot of Burning Man art too, right?
A lot of Burning Man art, and you don't have to worry about the burners right now because there's no Burning Man right now, so that's good. That's one positive. But yeah, so there's that, and then I feel like the people are. I left with kind of a bad taste in my mouth, and I'll be honest, because just how many people didn't think I would do anything with my life, and I didn't want to put all of them in that bubble. But I'm so thankful from like the people that I made the best friendships ever. My best friend that I met my freshman year of high school, we've been friends for almost 20 years, and we talk every single day. My other friend that I met, I got her a job at Bureau of Land Management. We still talk. And of course, my family's there, and my niece and nephew are such good kids, and I have a lot to thank for living in a smaller town for that. I feel like they're great. My little brother is the most amazing man in the world, and he was raised there, and so was I, and I feel like I'm so thankful for that place, but I'm also glad that I kind of escaped it in a way. I feel like I couldn't grow there, but I'm glad I did grow up there.
I can totally relate. You're talking to someone that moved cross country right out of college, just sight unseen. So I absolutely know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Two quick elements for you before we let you go. First one, your favorite Greater Nevada Field memory.
There's so many.
I know.
Definitely the Clint Barmas news. Tim Lincecum interview was really cool. Gosh, I think a really cool moment was my first sit-down interview was with Christian Walker. I was a big fan of his, and I wanted to ask him so many questions. And I got to sit with him 2 months ago for spring training and sit next to him. And it was just like a really cool full circle moment. I always knew he would make the Diamondbacks. Nobody else did. But when you're behind Paul Goldschmidt, like, you got to be a little patient, right? Mm-hmm. But I loved watching him hit, and he just wasn't getting enough at-bats. And I was always the interview that he would give me. He's like, I need more at-bats. And then finally, when I talked to him recently, he was like, I got all the at-bats I needed, and I proved myself. Obviously, not being behind Goldie anymore definitely helped. But I think that full circle moment was kind of cool. And then, of course, my friendship with Evan Marshall and his wife, going from being scared to interview him to he's a phone call away if I need any sort of advice or a quote for something. That's pretty cool, too.
One of the most mind-blowing things for me, going back to Paul Goldschmidt, he spent all of 2010 in Visalia, didn't get promoted. And I mean, we played them like 32 times, and he tore it up every single time we played.
Was he that big back then?
Huge. And I'm like,
God.
who missed on this guy, and why is he not in Double-A? But
right.
He's there all year. It's wild. Every time I see his name, which is frequently, I'm like, man, they kept him in Visalia for a whole year. Poor guy. Last one for you. You cover the A's. I was part of the A's family for 14 years. I felt this could have really been a special year for them. You still might have baseball, but, if we had been under normal circumstances, this could have been a really special year. I think they could have been sneaky this year. It really snuck up on a lot of people. What was your prognosis on the A's going into this season?
I feel, this is me being a baby, how unfair it is, because NBC's kind of turned into a classics now, which is good. The Giants have had a really strong, decade. But the A's, what do we say? Like, I promised they were going to be good. We can't really prove that right now. But I talked to Bob Melvin heading into the season during like FanFest Media Day, and he said this is the most excited he's been since he's been with the A's. This team. And, you look on paper and you think, oh, Homer Bailey's gone. Tanner Roark's gone, Brett Anderson's gone. On paper, that looks kind of scary, but then you see AJ Puck coming through, Luzardo, Chris Bassett could be that sixth man or come out of the bullpen. And then bullpen, Liam Hendricks. You have Marcus Semien, like you have the two Matts. You have Chris Davis was supposed to have a bounce back year. Ramon Laureano hasn't even peaked yet. And so we're thinking Mark Canha and Steven Piscotty, like all these really good guys. And I feel like the only issue they had was they were getting past that wild card game, which I was praying to the baseball gods, not just for my sake, but for their sake, because Zach, the way that they were when they lost that wild card game last year, I do not want to see those faces ever again. Yeah. Seeing Sean Manaea, as devastated as he was, absolutely broke my heart. And that storyline between Mike Fiers and the Astros was something I was really looking forward to covering, because I felt like that was really a maturation process on my part as a reporter role. And I really wanted to see how he handled it and how the Astros fans handled it. And there were so many elements that I was looking forward to heading into there, but it was such a magical team. And I don't mean to say that from a past perspective, but when I was covering them for spring training, they were all loose and fun and such a good team. And they had the best grapefruit league record or cactus league record heading into it or leaving it. And I just hope that that's not what we think about. Because if there is no baseball, Marcus Semion's a free agent, and it's like those kind of elements really suck. Because I feel that Marcus Semien is finally coming into his own after struggling defensively. And, then he was a third voter for AL MVP. So between them and the Reds, they were my two favorite, I guess, underdog teams. But it was also the first time for a very long time, the A's had really high standards in a way. And so I was looking forward to seeing if those were going to pay off. But so I don't mean to sound like a baby, but it just doesn't seem fair. And I know it's a world crisis, and I'm definitely, the pandemic is huge, and I'm definitely taking it seriously, but it breaks my heart, because it was like, man, what could have been,
Nothing seems fair right now. And I totally understand where you're coming from, and I don't think you're a baby about it at all.
Yeah.
Hey, Jessica, we're happy that you joined us. Thank you so much for making the time. Please don't be a stranger. Come to Reno. We'll go have wings.
Yes.
We'll have beer, and you can show me your hometown, and we'll look forward to having you back at Greater Nevada. All right.
All right. Well, I wanted to let you know that the A's guys, the A's fam, was very devastated to hear that you're leaving, but for good reasons. And they were very proud of you and everything like that. But the way that you handled everything you did with the A's family was top notch. And the Aces are so lucky to have you.
That means a heck of a lot to me. Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Jessica Kleinschmidt, baseball reporter, digital correspondent for NBC Sports Bay Area, proud Reno native. We'll be back to close out Aces Loaded after this.
Looking for more content? Check out RenoAces.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter, read player, coaches, and organizational stories, shop our online store, and more. Now back to the Aces Loaded podcast.
Closing out another edition of Aces Loaded. Again, Zack Bayrudy, joined by Jake Trybulski. Teaching a bullet. That's all I'm doing. I'm doing. Jake Trybulski. Great job, by the way, co-hosting this week, communications manager, and we're going to see Jake come back around again. Also, a shout out to Vince Rufino, who produced for us. Vince was our co-host last week. Thank you once again to Jen Richards, a CNO at Renown Medical Center, and can't thank them enough for all of their hard work, what they're doing, putting themselves out there at this crazy time. So thank you so much to Jen and her staff and everybody at Renown, and also to Jessica Kleinschmidt of NBC Sports Bay Area. Thanks so much to Jess, and hopefully she gets back up to Reno, and we'll see her at Greater Nevada Field soon. I want to go, and Jake, you can help me with this because you've experienced their food. I want to talk about Rounds Bakery, and there's a great article, a great feature on the Aces website as far as what Rounds is doing for medical workers and also making protective masks. And I want to give a shout out to their owners, to Anton Novak and Sean Carey. Jake, can you give us some background and some more insight as to what they're doing right now with what they have available through the bakery?
Yeah. So basically, I know with our partners, we're trying to spotlight what they're doing as well in the community. It's obviously not all about us. So I spoke with Anton, their owner, last week, and he, pound for pound, they might be doing more than us. Like it's actually incredible. They're donating bagels, breakfast sandwiches, muffins on a daily basis from about 8 to 9:30. He told me to Renown, St. Mary's, Northern Nevada Medical Center, different places, COVID testing sites. Basically, they have delivery trucks going around the town doing that. They took it upon themselves to Sean, one of the co-owners, knows how to sew. So he's been sewing medical grade masks for different, medical centers around the city.
Amazing.
But also for the public, as the CDC recommendations is that we wear a mask, just, going to the grocery store. So they're doing that as well. You can purchase those at their shop to kind of support, and all that money is going to different medical workers. And a lot of people think, we got a comment when we posted the story about why would I donate basically to the hospitals? They charge me so much to sit in the bed, blah, blah, blah. And what I want to say is that's not where the money's going to. The money's going to, the food needs of the workers, or hotel rooms for the medical workers where they can't go home and see their families, those types of things. We're not paying, their salaries. We're just supplementing some things that make their lives easier, and recognizing those things. And that's what Rounds is involved too with their mask, doing those things. But another thing that I liked about Rounds was they actually converted their restaurant into a marketplace. So Anton told me that they're selling essential goods, eggs, milk, toilet paper, things like that at, normally is a restaurant where you get breakfast items and bakery items like that. So that was pretty impressive that they were able to pivot that quickly and sell those types of things out of their restaurant. So I was extremely, extremely impressed with their community efforts that they've been doing.
These times are tough, but I think they are also bringing out the best in people, and it's so great to see them leading the way. They are located at 294 East Moana Lane. And again, you can't dine in, but you could get their food via takeout and delivery. Rounds Bakery, thank you guys so much for what you are doing in the community, and we are all indebted. I also want to remind everybody that you could get your BLC gear at renoaces.com. The team store is still open, and Jake, everything in that regard is still running as normal, and you can still order gear and have it shipped to you. Yeah,
absolutely. We launched BLC last week, and it's been going fantastic so far. I mean, people are obviously very prideful of the city, so what a better way to show it off with a BLC hat then.
Can't wait to get mine. Can't wait to get and I can't wait for baseball. I hope your juices are flowing like ours after hearing especially your top 5, Jake. That was a pretty phenomenal list, some epic moments at Greater Nevada Field in 2019.
Yeah,
so, thanks
absolutely.
For sharing that.
Made it really easy.
Yeah. Well, we are going to get out of here. Want to remind you that you can get this podcast, download it wherever you can find podcasts, wherever you get yours. Tell your friends, tell your family, and hopefully everybody kind of gets involved. And you can always send us some Q&A. We'll be happy to take your questions and answer them as best we can, or have some of our guests jump on and answer them as well. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to Vince Ruffino. Again, my name is Zack Beyruti. So long, and we will see you next week on the Aces Loaded podcast.